Laguna Woods City Council on Wednesday, June 28 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The sound really echoes in here when it's not filled with interested citizens. Yeah. Okay, first thing we have is the roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Horn.
Here.
Councilmember McCary.
Here.
Councilmember Moore. Present. Mayor Pro Tem Hatch. Here. Mayor Connors.
Here. I'll ask our city attorney to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, please stand if you're able. Place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I just messed it up.
We have an opportunity for members of the public to address our city council at almost on any item that we're going through. Right now is the time for public comments from issues that are not on our agenda. And I see nobody here who wishes to speak, and I will ask our city manager if there's anybody on Zoom or on the telephone who wishes to speak.
There's nobody on Zoom or the telephone who wishes to speak, but I do want to note that the City Council received a letter dated today from a Laurel. Yeah, they're adjusting it right now. A letter dated today from a Laurel Elting, a resident, regarding building permit fee concerns. I just wanted to note that that's been provided to the City Council.
Thank you. There will also be a time for residents to address us on certain items on the agenda when we get to those agenda items. The next thing we're coming to is the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted with one vote unless someone, like a member of the public or staff or the council, asks to have an item taken off for particular discussion and vote. Does anybody want to remove anything from the consent calendar?
I'll move the consent calendar. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That has been passed. We have no public hearings scheduled today, so we come straight to City Council business. Item 8.1, fiscal year 23 to 25 budget and work plan, and our fiscal year 23 to 34 capital improvement program. I think we will start with a report from our city manager. We've discussed each aspect of this at some length before.
Yeah, I don't have a formal presentation for you today. I wanted to just, I guess, draw your attention to some high-level information in the budget, and then I'm happy to talk more specifically about anything you'd like me to, or answer any questions. But in the transmittal letter, we provide some snapshots of the budget. So the takeaway from it is that each of the 2 fiscal years, the general fund budget is around $7 million, plus or minus for each of those years. And then in each of those years, if you add in all of our special revenue funds, that budget increases to roughly about $10 million. Those special revenue funds are an assortment of things. There's 13 different special revenue funds, but the majority of those obviously come from transportation-related revenues like fuel tax, Measure M2, and the Senate Bill 1 dollars. As we have in previous budgets, we've identified a handful of kind of longer-term financial concerns. One of those obviously continues to be, and the timing is coincidental, but the rising cost of law enforcement. And then the other one has to do with the city's sales tax and transient occupancy tax base. Those are respectively our second and fifth largest sources of general fund revenue, and we remain very reliant on a small number of businesses for both of those. This isn't new. I just wanted to flag those as things that we continue to watch as we move forward. I do want to assure you, though, that this budget is balanced in both of the fiscal years. In both cases, operating revenue is projected to slightly exceed operating expenditures. And then we do have some one-time expenditures out of the general fund in the 23-24 fiscal year. None budgeted for the 24-25 fiscal year, but we do obviously in both of those years have a variety of one-time expenditures from special revenue funds, with most of our capital improvement dollars coming from things like federal grant monies, whether that's CDBG or whether that's the American Rescue Plan Act. So I feel very confident with this budget that it gets us where we need to go. It does the things that we've talked about over the last several months of this process. I don't have any kind of overarching concerns other than those kind of bigger, longer term issues that I just mentioned. And yeah, aside from that, I guess I'm happy to answer any questions. And like I said, I'm happy to talk more in depth about anything. I just didn't want to belabor the point since we've had like 6 meetings or something up to this point about the budget. So I would turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you. I have one comment with regard to law enforcement costs. Had a meeting with Supervisor Foley this week, and she said that the supervisors have completed their negotiations, I think with the transit workers or the public works workers, and those folks are negotiated a raise of over 15% over 3 years or 4 years, and so they expect that other labor negotiations will kind of fall in line with that. So,
3 or 4, which?
well, I'll have to let you know.
The reason I'm asking because the fire department was 13.4 over 4 years.
Okay.
And those figures are consistent with what we've assumed. So the budget that the Sheriff's Department presented to us included a 0% increase in salaries and benefits because they candidly don't know what the Board of Supervisors is going to ultimately approve. So we have assumed an at least 9% increase in the first year and a 4% increase in the second year.
What was the first year?
9%.
I'm having difficult.
Sorry,
hearing.
if we could turn the volume
all
up
right.
just a little in here. The 9% in the first year and then 4% in the second year. The way we've budgeted, it actually comes out to a little bit more than 9% and 4% in each of those years. But we've assumed, for the sake of argument, a 3-year contract spread over those 3 years at 9%, 4%, 4%. If it ends up being slightly different than that, we have some contingencies elsewhere in the budget that can accommodate it. But I think our thinking is much in line with what the mayor just said, and actually with what Councilmember Hatch just said, that we're talking in the ballpark of 15% over 3 years.
Okay.
That's what we're prepared for, at least. If it's higher than that, we may have to talk to you, but we've made that assumption just based on our best guess.
Very good. Anybody have any other comments or questions about the budget?
I do.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Carol first.
First off, I don't think it is logical to compare the law enforcement with the transit workers who were extremely low because they took a 15, they were low to begin with. So you can't say all people are the same. So I don't think that's a logical argument. That is not really what it's just a comment. My question is that you've added some people, and I have a hard time deciding what their specific duties are, how many you've added, and did you budget enough for that? Could you
There's
cover all
there's
that?
actually no additional staffing included in this budget. The overall number of staff still stays at
That's what I
10.25.
Are you-
Yeah, all we've done I think it's the third item on the agenda today, or maybe the next one, we are proposing to reclassify existing employees. So there's no new employees, it's existing employees moving into new positions. But to answer your question, yes, we've assumed those costs in this budget. So we've included sufficient funds to cover the existing staffing complement, but it doesn't actually increase the overall number. It's more intended to put people in jobs that better match what they're doing already, if that makes
Okay,
sense.
could you explain what the changes are then? And so
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
say, pardon me, you're saying that there's no additional people, okay? Because
Mm-hmm.
I took that slightly differently, and
Sure.
I'm glad you explained it. And the second one was, you said you covered it. So, okay, if you could do that, that would
Yeah,
be
absolutely.
helpful. Thank you.
So, and I'll actually pull up the org chart here. I think that's probably an easier way of looking at it. Give me just one moment. Okay. So I'm going to pull up on the screen, and this, if you want to turn to the page in your agenda packet, it's Exhibit A in item 8.1, and it's page 20, so chapter 2, page 5. But I will pull it up on the screen just in case.
Attachment A? What did you
Yeah,
say?
it's the budget document, and then it's chapter 2, page 5.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I'll get it as large as I can on the screen just for talking points.
I may not find it, but if you're going to put something up there. just-
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are the existing staffing roles. So the 5 of you are at the top with the city council, then it's Alicia and I here. There are 3 existing management analyst positions that are typically shown here. Those management analyst positions are currently budgeted as either a management analyst or a senior management analyst. They're currently all filled as management analysts. Right now, one of those is generally focused on solid waste and water quality issues. One of those is generally focused on development issues.
On what?
And development, so
Development.
planning, building, that sort of thing. And then the third one is focused on public works, so public property, construction, maintenance, that sort of thing. So what we've suggested doing is, instead of leaving those as management analyst positions, creating a unique job description for each. So the position focused on solid waste and water quality would become the conservation administrator. With, generally speaking, the term conservation is intentional. Conservation is a term used in state law to describe certain activities under the general plan that relate to environmental stewardship and kind of natural resources type issues.
Is that actually a change or more of a definition?
These are all mostly definition changes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
There is a slight, in this particular case, there's a slight expansion of scope beyond just solid waste and water quality. Some of the work plan items relate to climate planning, open space issues. So this position would take on a couple more of those type of items.
It's totally environmental, though.
Totally environmental, yeah.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, in the job description, we talk primarily about this position being related to natural resources issues in a broader sense. So that position would become the conservation administrator. The existing development management analyst, that would become the development administrator position. That would again be still focused on building, planning, code enforcement, those sorts of things.
Does that include our permitting?
Yes, it's oversight of the permitting contract as well.
Chris, could I ask you?
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
other quick question in there. In the permit, is there any other than the village in the permitting? I mean, there must be some eventually, but it must be very minuscule, is it, or isn't it?
Oh,
all-
the number of permits in the village yeah, I mean, it's majority inside the village. There are, I mean, commercial improvements and
course.
things, but it definitely is lopsided in, one side or the other. If you think about it, the rest of our housing units are either conventional apartments where people aren't pulling building
Right.
permits, or they're assisted living facilities, where those facilities do pull permits for different things, but it's not a huge number of them.
And so what's that one called again?
Development administrator.
It was development and building planning, so now it's development administration.
So it was, the current working title is Development Programs Analyst. It
Okay.
would become Development Administrator. So it's
Well,
just
I
a
didn't hear the
title
last word, I'm
change.
sorry.
Yeah.
Administrator.
Yeah.
Development administrator. Yeah.
And then the third one, the existing Maintenance Programs Analyst who oversees public property related programs, her position would move from Maintenance Programs Analyst to Public Works Administrator, which is a much better reflection of her actual duties. And so that's all they're intended to
When
do.
you say that,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, on that last one, then, the public works, that includes the dog park?
Yep.
It would include the city park?
Streetlights, roads,
Streetlights,
buildings,
roads, okay.
parks,
Okay.
all of that. Traffic control devices. Yep, all of that.
Okay, thank you
Yep, you're welcome.
for explaining that.
Absolutely.
Noel, did you have a comment?
Good, thanks. We turn over to follow what Carol's saying here. Look at item 8.3.
Microphone. Microphone. Noel.
Way in the back.
You're talking about E3? That's a different item than we're on.
I know it's a different item, but
Yeah.
it shows these three.
It's
It does.
appropriate.
Yeah, it shows the various, when we all have that, do you all have that?
8.3?
All right.
Yes, just a moment, sorry. Thank you for
Yeah.
bearing with us.
We've just been discussing the redliners.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're looking at the next line, a senior management analyst.
Yes.
That is the person we're looking for right now, is that correct?
Yes, we're currently recruiting for a senior management analyst. That position's been vacant since it was authorized, but
Right.
that's included in that 10.25, but yes.
So that's in the budget?
Mhm. Yep.
That makes an assumption we found that person and we're gonna hire.
Well, I mean, it's in the budget currently, and we
Okay,
haven't
so
found
I
somebody, but
believe-
yes, it remains in the
Okay.
budget. That's certainly the hope that we find
We
somebody.
don't want any pocket change.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's sitting there though.
Okay, now go back to the state auditor's ranking.
Yes.
That's at page V6.
So you're back in item 8.1, attachment A, and you are in the transmittal letter.
Stanton is the only city in Orange County that ranks a little higher than we do in the top 15 as far as fiscal integrity and operation. There are a number of cities that are suspect, primarily because of the retirement funds. Irvine's even in that situation. Irvine's about in the middle. And because of, and most of the cities that I've looked at have a negative rating, including us, have a red line of business trends. Business trending is down, even in Irvine and places like that. And that's the only negative we have on ours. Otherwise, we're green in the top 5%. Stanton has always been ahead of us, as I remember.
We've been ahead in previous years. It's just a matter of how the numbers shake out at the end of each fiscal year.
Right.
There should be a new round of rankings released later this summer.
No, go ahead.
No one is offsetting that with the increase in the property taxes. And I've commented on that before, that cities that must rely on business, it's tough because people are ordering online. That's all, we're in the midst of a very dramatic change in how people, and it's always changing, but sometimes it's over long periods of time because nothing is ever the same. And so if you look at the economic issue of it, I feel like that gives us a positive because we're not heavily reliant on you wouldn't panic if business went down. It's not going to be a high growth area. Pardon me if I'm not speaking in there. And while the property tax is a much safer road because the property tax, somebody has to pay it. If you don't pay it, they'll sell your property and the tax gets paid. Whereas buying your bicycles or something, that can go up and down, and it doesn't, if it goes down, and a city's dependent on that, then and I think we saw cities do that. They had a tremendous sales in malls and all kinds of things, and that's no longer the fact. We know with this big change is that it's been slowly occurring, and so I don't see that as a negative.
Yeah, I mean, so what Councilmember Hatch is talking about is one of the factors that the state auditor ranks cities on is revenue trends. And the way they do that is averaging 3 fiscal years of revenue and figuring out what the overall change is. So the most recent auditor's information is for the fiscal year ended June 30th of 2021, which means that the 3 fiscal years that they looked at included the COVID years.
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, I'm looking at the data right now, and it shows that we have an average annual change in general fund revenue of 3% over that time. But I would expect to see that because of COVID. So I would expect the further we get out of that, we're going to go from that red line that, like Councilmember Hatch said, most cities have right now because of what happened during COVID. I suspect that will improve, and it will improve our ranking. But I would say, too, that even with that 3% average annual change in revenue. So there are 431 cities that were assessed by the auditor's office. Of those 431, just looking at that revenue trends category, we are kind of mid-pack in total points. We have 2.13 points out of 5 points. And so it's not great, but we're also not at the bottom of it. And I do really think that when we get next year's ranking, I would expect this particular metric to improve for us because we'll drop one of the out years and we'll include a higher revenue year in the forward. So sometimes when you're talking about statistics and when agencies are seeking to evaluate all cities on the same standards, there's extenuating factors that don't really get communicated in there. But I think the takeaway for us is that we are 19th lowest risk in the state of California, even with that 3% average annual drop in revenue. So it's still something to be proud of. But I do think it'll be interesting to see what happens as future information.
The point I'm leading up to
Yeah.
was the sheriff's departments and our dependence upon what the county is going to do, and we've heard that. But the other is on CalPERS and our pension. And there is a statement in here that confused me, and that's why I'm bringing this up. We have always attempted to be on top of our pension payments. You know, every year
Right.
we do it. And in here, there is this statement, and my question is this balance that you refer to a positive balance, i.e. we've overpaid, or
No.
do we still owe $328,447?
So it's neither of those really. So it's not that you've overpaid. It is a positive balance.
Yeah,
so it's
we
not a
didn't
negative.
overpay.
I know, but
We didn't overpay, but what happens is for several years, the city took action to fully pay for the unfunded liability calculated as of that time. So then what happens is that money gets invested and the fund performs better. And so when you go from zero, the fund performs better, all of a sudden you have what's referred to as like a super funded pension plan because the value of your assets
which
increase.
in itself is risky, because you lose that if suddenly the city closed business. I mean, then
Yeah,
that isn't an
sure.
asset for you.
It's not an asset for the
Not
city.
at all, then, okay.
Well, I mean,
It is in a way.
Yeah, I mean, if the city went away,
I
it
mean,
wouldn't be an asset.
So we don't
Yeah.
make a payment this year, and we have a liability of $250,000. We don't need to make a payment. Is that what you're suggesting?
So PERS generally, there's still usually like a monthly payment that's made for current year liabilities. But yes, in general, like I don't anticipate recommending that the council make supplemental lump sum payments to the fund until the value of our assets drops below the actual liability of our plan.
All right. And that assumption is that we're not going to have to make any payment is in the budget.
Yeah, so we haven't assumed any payment
Yeah,
towards
no.
either of our trust funds. So we have one for pension and then we have one for other post-employment benefits, which is really just retiree medical that we're statutorily required to provide. Both of those plans are super funded, one obviously more than the other, right? One is 300-something thousand, the other is like $250
And
overfunded.
the return we're getting on the county funds is really the pitch compared to what some other, like Stiefel and somebody like that. Is that a fair statement? I mean,
I think so.
We're not
So
getting-
LAIF, in terms of investments, LAIF is pretty low. That's the state investment pool. OSIP, which is the county investment pool, is higher than LAIF.
That's Sherry Friedenrich, isn't it?
That's Sherry
She's doing a
Friedenrich, yes.
fantastic job.
And so the county pool is, I mean, fairly. I say significantly. It's still low, but it's fairly significantly higher than the state.
Isn't it primarily?
I can pull it up and double check, but it's higher. And then you have to remember too that we also have we've been pretty aggressive with purchasing CDs, and so we have a good amount of our fund balance not required for liquidity purposes invested in CDs, and those. Well, we have them up to 5 years, and they range up to 5+%. So
The latter,
they're laddered, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
I have a question about sales tax and internet sales.
Mm-hmm.
I recall that there was floating around a requirement that internet sellers collect sales tax and remit it either to the city where the buyer is or the city where the delivery is. Do we get sales tax off of internet sales?
Yeah, it comes to us by way of a county pool, so money gets pooled in this overall kind of pot of money, and then it gets distributed to cities, I believe, based on our proportional share of other sales tax in the county. I'd have to double check that.
Oh, boy.
But yes, there's like direct sales tax, and then there's our portion of an Orange County pool sales tax that flows to us.
I would think basing it on other sales tax is actually weird because the other sales tax goes down as the internet sales go up.
And even to pool it like that,
Yeah.
it's highly,
Well.
it seems that's highly inaccurate, doesn't it to you?
We'll have to talk to our lobbyists in.
Just to circle back on Councilmember Hatch's comments, in LAIF, the state investment pool, as of May, their interest yield was slightly less than 2.99%. And then the county pool, the net yield was 3.566%.
Wow,
And improvement.
that's about 50% better.
Yeah, there's a significant difference between the two. So we have, as of May, we had roughly 7.6 million in the county pool versus 1.3 million in the state pool. So,
In Leif,
yeah.
And we've looked into stipends, haven't we?
Uh-huh.
it's about 9.
Yeah, and CDs, which is where we purchase through a third party.
Okay.
We use MBS, but it's a similar kind of entity. We have, as of May 31st, we had just over 32% of our total investable fund balance in there. So we had roughly just under 4.8 million in CDs. And those CDs, I'm just glancing at them real quick here, they range up to, it looks like the highest that we have right now is 5.2%.
And that's about a 2-year warrant, a 2-year life?
The 5.2 that's actually a 12-month CD.
Okay.
But we have CDs ranging anywhere from 12 months to 60 months at a variety of different yields. But it looks like we have we have a 4.95% at 24 months, 4.85% at 36
are
months.
amazing.
There
That's
are a
amazing.
couple of 5s in that
Yeah.
period of time.
It looks like the highest that we have for the 60-month yields right now is 4.6.
That's good.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I have one more question, if I may. And I'm sympathetic to the fire people are here right now. And, pardon? Sheriff. I'm sympathetic to the, to the issue of retirement because I'm curious for you, I suppose that the people who are getting ready to retire, your fear is that you don't want to retire and run out of money because before COLA and before all that, we have a lot of people living here still whose their income doesn't go up. They've retired, they've been retired for a very long time, and they got a retirement, which seemed very good at one time, but expenses have risen and they're not riding along with that. And so I'm curious if that's usually the fear that you have, that you could retire and run out of money. Is that the general? Could you speak into the microphone? I'm just asking that because inflation is a killer. It's a killer for people who retire. It's very difficult for people who live here who find that they're running out of money. So I'm just asking your opinion on what's happening to you.
Good afternoon, all. Sergeant Theo Wilder, Administrative Sergeant for the City of Laguna Woods. Don't let the size fool you. I'm soft-spoken.
No, you're too long.
I think that's a consideration for, not just members of law enforcement or not just first responders across the country.
Right.
I think that's something that's actually applicable to all of our residents and
Right.
people that's working towards retirement. It is something to be considered, for sure.
And we're living longer, so there you go.
Indeed.
It's tough. It's very difficult because you see both ends of it. We don't want you to run out and have that happen to you, but we have these, people who their income isn't growing, and our constant concern is that we're increasing costs, which we don't want to do. We don't want to harm our residents, and it's a challenge. Thank you.
Without a doubt, certainly.
Okay, anything else from you guys?
Do you want a motion?
So let me.
Not yet, I need Chris to read the.
Yeah, I will read the recommended
All right.
action. It involves adopting 3 resolutions, which you're certainly able to do in one vote if you'd like to. Staff's recommendation is to adopt resolutions titled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Laguna Woods, California, adopting the fiscal year's 2023-25 budget and work plan for fiscal year 2023-24, commencing July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024, and fiscal year 2024-25, commencing July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2025. The second resolution is titled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Laguna Woods, California, adopting a new 11-year capital improvement program for fiscal years 2023-24 through 2033-34, in conformance with Measure M2 OCGO requirements and applicable city policies and discretion." And then the third resolution is titled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Laguna Woods, California, adopting the annual appropriations limit, GAN limit, for fiscal years 2023-24, commencing July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024, in accordance with Article 13B of the California State Constitution."
Okay, can I have a motion?
Move it.
Second.
All 3 resolutions?
All 3.
We'll do them in one vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Moving right along, we come to item 8.2 regarding Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017 project list.
And
Can
this-
we have a staff report,
Yeah,
please?
this item is related to the budget. Every year, in order to receive Senate Bill $1, this was the supplemental kind of gas tax, fuel tax money, the city, every city is required to adopt a project list indicating to the state how they plan to spend that money. So that project list is non-binding. I'm fond of reminding people about this, that it is meant to provide the state some insight into how these dollars are spent, but if city priorities change during the year, this in no way limits our spending. What we've done historically and what we're proposing today is just simply to adopt a resolution designating next year's pavement management plan project as the recipient of this funding. That's consistent with the budget that you just approved. So the project next year is the pavement management plan project westbound El Toro Road between Canyon Wren and Tanager. The staff recommendation is to adopt a resolution titled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Laguna Woods, California, adopting a list of fiscal year 2023-24 projects proposed to receive funding from the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017's Local Streets and Roads Funding Program, Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Account, as required by California Streets and Highways Code Section 2034A1, and making related authorizations."
Have we discussed this sufficiently for the council to be prepared to vote? Anybody have any questions for the city manager?
I'll move the resolution.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that also is unanimous. Now we come to item 8.3, employee positions, compensation and benefits, and we already had a little bit of discussion on that, but go
I was
ahead,
going to
Chris.
say, we talked about this a bit earlier. The 2 recommendations here, which again, we're comfortable treating as one vote unless you'd like to separate them. The first is to approve job classifications for the following city employee positions: Conservation Administrator, Development Administrator, and Public Works Administrator. And then the second would be to adopt a resolution titled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Laguna Woods, California, repealing resolution number 23-11 and establishing a compensation schedule and benefits for city employees That merely adopts salary ranges for those 3 positions and then adopts the 3 job classifications.
Carol, you had questions on this earlier, and Chris spoke for a while on it. Does anybody else have any other questions on this issue?
I'd like to make a comment if
Go
I
ahead.
could. It has to do with, I think our city is actually in even better position because our city, we don't have a lot of recreation. We don't have recreation because the village handles all, they have all the clubhouses. So, and we don't have a lot of assets. We don't have to maintain recreation buildings. We don't have to maintain, we have a couple of parks. This is critical because, you may have read about it, the situation that occurred in San Juan Capistrano. Well, sometimes cities own water agencies, and I'm highly opposed to cities owning water agencies because they get short of money and they want to pull it to cover something else, and then things don't get maintained. And our streets are maintained. We've talked about it. I drive on other people's streets, and you see that that our streets are maintained, and our medians are maintained, and street lights or whatever. I'm sympathetic to these cities, these larger cities, because it can happen. You see it when you're on the board, that you have people who want to forego maintaining something because they want to keep the assessment low, and I certainly don't want a high assessment either, but you have to maintain things. And I think if you look at our city, what do we have challenging us? I don't see the huge challenges from recreation buildings. We don't have those to maintain. We don't maintain the sewers, thank goodness. We don't have to maintain the water. That's not so we don't have these major capital improvements that put challenges on the city as other cities have. So, and it's hard to align that and look at 2 cities and say, well, look, they're doing this and they're doing this, because remember, we don't have all those costs. We don't have those recreation costs, as I keep bringing up. We don't have the sewers. We have our streets. And so when we're well maintained, our challenges for capital improvements aren't out there.
Yeah, they are. But
What were you going to say?
They're village.
They're village.
Yeah, but we don't have them, but as residents of the city in the village.
Oh, we do.
We have, yeah, but that's what, 95% of the people have those same responsibilities. What we don't have are all of the accoutrements that go with cities that have children and that sort
Yes,
of thing. We have
schools.
none of that, yeah.
True.
And parks, and particularly parks.
Yes, major parks.
Which, if I may just ask one question about, there is an item in here in the future that we're going to have to spend about $210,000 to redo something in, quote, City Park if the fire authority gets its station there.
I thought that was drainage.
Is that what that is going to be? That's what I was asking. What is
Yeah, so there's a reference in the capital improvement program to if the city council elects to lease a portion of City Center Park for use as a fire station, with the legislation currently pending in Sacramento that was heard in the assembly today, there's likely to be a requirement to spend $212,000 in improvements to the remaining portion of City Center Park. That's as a condition for allowing, or for the state allowing the deed restriction to be pulled off of that portion of the park. So yes, there's likely to be some level of capital investment required there, but I don't want to get into it today. We don't know for what.
Do you have
There's
any idea what they're looking at?
no, the only requirement in the legislation is it has to enhance either the active or passive recreational quality of the park. It requires us to do 2 community meetings with anybody who's interested in the community to talk about what they might like to see there, and then the city council will have to make that decision ultimately. But again, this all hinges on if the property's also, 1, if the legislation passes, 2, if the property's leased, and then obviously there's a discussion to be had there with the fire authority about who actually bears the cost for that level of improvement.
So it's possible reimbursement.
It would be my expectation that that's not a city expense, that that money originates with the fire authority.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's perfect. I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Okay. Um, Although we were just talking parks, I believe we are on 8.3,
8.3.
having to do with employee positions and compensation. Would you read the recommended action, please?
I already read the recommended action, so
Okay,
somebody
I'll take
could
a
move.
motion on the recommended action.
I move the resolution.
And just to be clear, that's recommendations 1 and 2 on the agenda?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Second, if no one has.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? That also is unanimous. I always like unanimous. Okay, that brings us now to our city council reports and comments. Does the Coastal Greenbelt Authority have anything to report?
No, Madam Mayor, the Coastal Greenbelt Authority will meet next month in July.
Okay, are they going to meet here in our chamber?
They will meet here in the chambers.
We get to show off our new library.
Yay.
There appears to be a member of the public here who wishes to make a comment.
Yes, thank you. I've decided to wait until the end of the budgeting because, I've gone through the budgeting and it's very well done. But I think one of the things that you need to really think about and look at, as a city, when you read through it, you've got in your current balance enough money to run the city with no revenue coming in. And as Chris said, you've got enough money in CDs, laddered in CDs, a fund balance of nearly $7 million. As a city, you have close to $13 million essentially sitting in the bank, because the probability of you not receiving revenue next year is 0. Property taxes have to be paid. The taxes that the village pays for running the lines across the street, for the TV tax. You've got sources of taxes that has a very steady income. You're not at the risk of a private corporation whose revenue can function considerably depending upon what they're selling and the status of the market. Cities and public agencies are very protected when it comes that way. And I think cities, when you're in a city, then you got to get away from. You worked in private industry. In private industry, you were really very cautious because you didn't know if the next product you just designed was going to sell. So you had to have the funds. Cities don't have that requirement. And I think you guys have done a great job when it comes to pensions. Chris was absolutely right. You've got your trust set up already. The trust is generally going to provide enough return relative to what your commitments are relative to the expenses of retirement. One of the reasons the accounting laws were changed, for many years, cities were committing very large, and counties and the federal government, in fact, were committing retirement plans without ever showing on the balance sheet that they had that commitment. And so anybody looking at the balance sheet and it goes for the water districts too, I'm just saying public agencies, people have to really, public agencies have to be far more careful in how they operate and making sure that the revenue that is being provided to you by the citizens is being used for the citizens and not just accumulated when you have a situation that you really don't have a lot of expenses in order to operate. For example, your budget next year is $6.9 million. And you've got essentially $6.8 million currently sitting in your account. And that's why I said that you could run the whole year with no revenue increase. So I think you need to sit back and I'm just talking because I get involved this way with the water district, the sewer districts I'm on, paying attention to, are we using the funds that have been paid to us for the purposes of which they've been paid, which is to provide services to the people we represent. And I think that it's important that you all, and that's why I was pushing you several months ago, take a look at one of the best services and the biggest services as a city you provide to 97% of the people here is the permit office. And make sure that permit cost is reasonable relative in comparison to all the other cities around, and right now you're the highest. So I'd like to have you sit and think through all this and talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the fire authority have anything to report?
I have nothing to report other than to tell you, if you would like, I'll have a video sent of the academy graduation of our most recent, and you can
Oh,
see what it
we heard about,
All right, I'll see that we have that for a July meeting.
Okay,
All right.
good, thanks. How about the Library Advisory Board? Have they met lately?
they have not. I've had a couple of things, but I'll save those because I have something on the watershed, and so I won't
Okay.
link that.
While we're talking library, though, I just want to ask Chris for 3 sentences on the status of construction outside our windows here.
The contractor is working on various punch list items
We're
at
on
the
the
moment.
punch list.
We're on the punch list. The fencing was obviously taken down on the side facing El Toro, so the planter work has been completed, replanted. Yes, much more parking available. And then, yeah, they're working on punch list items. So we'll be doing this for the next couple of weeks at least.
Then we're going to get some large potted plants to put by the pillars or whatever to.
Yes, we have to get through construction and get the site back to city possession. So
Okay.
I had a question.
Strange feeling that when I enter over here off of, by the restaurant, come in around and drive right along here, that little strip against the wall, of little annuals, it looks like, maybe they are perennials.
Little
I think
spiky
they're-
things.
I think they're gonna die.
Yeah, they're not getting water.
I really don't see why we have anything there that small and so forth. And then it's gonna look shabby. Maybe we ought to put artificial plants and do something. I don't know,
I will have our
Talk.
landscape crew take a look at them.
I had a question for Chris,
Yeah.
Madam Mayor.
Say again?
I have a question for Chris.
Go ahead.
Have there been any more incidents of vandalism since the one that occurred earlier, several months back, in terms of?
No, none that we're aware of.
Okay.
And I have a question also. Chris, do you, off the top of your head, how much of city funds went into building this library? $1.5 million?
No, it was over.
There's less than that, wasn't it?
Since I happen to have the budget in front of me, I can give you a number. Just give me one
I
second.
just wanted to point that out as one of the reasons we have reserves.
I
So that
thought
when
it
we
was
need to do
3.
something like that, we have
So
cash to do
for
it.
that project, it is a total fund balance or a total project cost right now of 177 million. And of that, 670,280 came from the general fund. Of course, we had a strange situation where we got all of this extra federal money. So the 2 million, little over 2 million that is going towards the project from those federal funds would have otherwise been general fund expenditures if we didn't get that influx of cash kind of unexpectedly for us.
And we also have an issue out here on the golf carts using the walkway down there, and that's some amount of money there that is not resolved yet.
Yeah. Well, Noel just pointed out that there may be another capital improvement we need to make regarding golf carts.
Is it $1 million?
Yeah, it was over $1 million.
$1 million for that. So $1 million here and $1 million there, and pretty soon you're
You're
really
at $1
glad you
billion.
have your reserves.
I mean, you know, when we're used to working with hundreds of millions, why, it makes a difference, though, doesn't it?
Okay.
You
Mosquitoes.
know, I look at this city and I know that you agree with this, Catherine. I think it
Oh,
is really.
come talk into your mic.
I think it is really run well by staff, by the boards, and by the public. There is hopefully a relationship between all of us as a, quote, family, not for profit, but with common interests. Okay.
Okay, mosquitoes? Okay. I heard there were some incidences of malaria in Florida and Texas.
Yes.
Yes, because the weather is so warm, and now we have all those mosquitoes here that will spread it, not just malaria, but dengue and chikungunya, Zika, lots of imported mosquitoes.
Today, they indicated that the either travelers, because it's appearing on the borders, it's not everywhere. So travelers may have returned with it. Somehow it's being brought to Florida and Texas.
Actually, now it's spread here. It may have been brought years ago by mosquitoes, but now it's having person-to-person
Oh, yes.
transmission without travel in Texas and Florida.
And there is an ad that
But not-
appears on various sports channels and things like that on the internet that says something about the way to eliminate mosquitoes in your life or something like that. I hesitate ever to punch on those things, but is there any magic out there? My sense is
Probably
there
the
isn't salve or anything at all.
Any repellent with DEET in it is the best one.
Okay,
Yeah, that's really the best. And then long sleeves,
yeah.
light colored clothing, and of course, long pants, because ticks are becoming a thing too now.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of diseases that we're going to be more capable of maintaining here now as the weather gets hotter and water patterns change all over.
They don't go to the beach though, do they?
The ticks do go down there into the open space, especially by the coast.
Wilderness open space.
Waterways, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The transportation corridor agencies are recruiting for a new CEO, and we were just meeting this morning to conduct interviews. We had a headhunter agency, and they put together a very spiffy request for resumes or a job announcement. And you read it, and they want, you want someone who's a great communicator and who's a real strong manager and who's flexible and who's change-oriented and who has experience with big public works projects. And, it's pretty elevated, but they got about 50 responses. And the headhunter, kind of called through them and found 10 who were qualified. And then that was reduced down to 5, and those 5 were interviewed by a committee of the board, and this morning, the board interviewed 3 of the applicants. So I think in July, at our regular July meeting, we'll make a decision.
This is your third one, isn't it? And
Yeah, it will be. We haven't
the
had,
second was very short, wasn't it?
yeah,
A year or two.
yeah.
That was not an amicable party.
No, nor was the one before it.
Really,
So,
neither one.
yeah, so, and I understand before my time, the one before that was not amicable either, so.
Maybe,
So I hope that that our due diligence and our good luck are better this time around.
keep us posted.
Okay. After that comes watershed management. You got some comments.
I do. I've saved this, it's months ago, because each time we were running so late. So I kind of put together a little slideshow. It's not very long. And it takes place at the Laguna Niguel Crown Valley project. It's actually considered a sub-area of Aliso Creek. And we are, of course, our community has, we're on Aliso Creek. We're very aware of Aliso Creek. That map, it's hard to make it bigger, but if you're looking at that, you can see where it is. And can you show where we are, Chris? go up.
Yeah, that's Crown Valley, and then we're up here. This is Laguna
Yes,
Woods.
right there, okay. The reason I was trying to show, because, when you're driving, you sometimes are unaware where the two areas are. So there we are up at the top where the arrow is. Did you show that again?
Yeah, up here.
Right there, okay, because it runs through there. That water is always making its way to the ocean. It's not like it designs it, but because of the land, it'll run it to the ocean. And then, of course, right down there is Aliso Creek. So the next one then shows, you can see the area of the Crown Valley Parkway project, that kind of purple or magenta line around there, and there's Crown Valley. It kind of gives you an idea of its location. You saw all these are sub-watersheds. There's one large one, then all these little parts running into it. So next, yeah. Okay, why are we concerned about this? And I took this directly. These are quotes. I took them directly from the county. That is material that someone had a pet in our community, picked up after their pet, and then threw it in the street, and cars drove over it. You see what that is. Now, when it rains or our sprinkler system runoff runs through that, it picks it up and takes it into the sewer. So at the beaches, this is directly from the county, we do see an elevated bacterial increase because water will wash all the dirty fecal materials on the streets, from the roofs right to the ocean. On the roofs, obviously, that's from birds. Beachgoers who visit beaches during or after rain event have an increased risk of contracting ear infections, eye infections, upper respiratory infections, skin rashes, gastrointestinal illnesses. Swimmers are advised to stay out of the water for a minimum of 3 days following a big storm. So this is all the material that's on there. I didn't even throw in the fact that cars are driving, their oils, the particles from the tires, which have PFAS, which are those everlasting chemicals. So humans, each human contributes a lot. We don't want high density situations with more humans contributing more. So this is what we're starting off with the watershed. If this is on a street in our community, and it is, this won't go into the Laguna Niguel. This could go either way, depends on where it accumulated. This can wash all the way down to Newport Beach, depending on which side of the watershed. On the other side, it washes down in the Aliso Creek area. Thank you. There's another one then. So what they did is they created a path for the water off of Crown Valley Parkway, and this cost, I think it was a $500 million for this whole area. You can see the cost of trying to protect our beaches, keep our swimmers safe, and all what's involved in it. So it flows through this, picking up and depositing some of the smaller pieces. Okay, do you see the next one then? That is a culvert there. And it's a little bit more narrow because it's trying to slow the water down and clean it, because underneath, as it runs down in there, it's cleaning it, but it's also slowing it down because we don't want water rushing and wearing away things, and also it gives it time to clean it up. So the next one, these are the material that was planted, helps filter. It includes special soils and utilities are below the surface to filter it and slow down the flow of that water that was running off, we saw earlier, off of Crown Valley. And you can see that channel. It continues through. This is a man-made wetlands. There were thousands of wetlands in Southern California. They were all moved and dried up so we could build houses. And so now we're trying to put some of those back to clean up the water before it goes to the ocean, because we're all that human activities that caused the problem in the first place. So the next one shows these are some of the plants, because not only they help cleaning it up, they put plants in there that can help provide additional habitat for birds and other animals that live in this area, and we're familiar with them. So they've selected specific ones. So a few of the benefits, of course, it's about 600 feet, and it's about 50 acres. When you remember that magenta map, okay, all of this flows, it creates the habitat, it helps prevent the flooding, and no pumps are needed. It looks like it would go uphill. It's confusing, isn't it? Because you're going up to to me, it's up, but it's kind of over, and it's all gravity, so no pumps, and it flows into Sulphur Creek, and in Sulphur Creek, they're taking it and holding it at Laguna Niguel Lake. So that's kind of a background of what it takes to clean up from humans and the cost and the time and the reason.
Thank you. Is there any report from the bridge builders?
I just want to say that for our July meeting on July 10th, because of the tremendous rise in hate crimes and incidents, we're having someone from from Homeland Security, from Homeland Defense, someone from our Sheriff's Department, Chief Alday, and someone from our village security, Mr. Nunez. So they'll all be talking about hate crimes and the response of government and people at all different levels. What all of us can do. It'll take all of us to stand together to help this issue.
A worthy
Thank
goal.
you.
Does anybody have any comments about other meetings or whatever that they may have attended? In that case, we have no closed session, so we are ready to adjourn to our next regular council meeting on Wednesday, July 19, here in City Hall at 2 p.m. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, everyone.
Adjourned.